All right. Okie dokie. Why don't we start with just like introduce yourself and tell us what you do for a living?
Hi, I am Faggedy Randy. I'm a burlesque performer, and I've been doing it for, I feel like 10 years. I've been performing longer, but like strictly burlesque about 10 years, yeah. And my day job is being a weird, procrastinating visual designer.
Oh, do you? You do visual design as well?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. When did you get into, I guess, burlesque before you said 10 years ago? How did you get into it?
Well, I started getting into like dance performance because I had a crush on this guy, and I worked at this restaurant called Crave in Seattle, and he was there, and I was like, "Ooh, he's like hot." And one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, I dance with him all the time. He dances over at the studio Velocity in Seattle." So then I was walking by that studio one night, and I was like, I need to go see if this person's in there. Also, maybe I'll like figure out the class schedule and just start taking classes, and then I'll run into him there. But he was there, and I did the weird little thing where I like wrote my number down on a piece of paper, and I was like, ah, and like left it. But that got me interested in like modern dance, so I started doing that, and then that quickly turned into like doing modern dance performances. And from there, I met a bunch of people that works down at this place called the Can that's in the Pike Place Market. And then I weirdly got swept up into that world, and that was kind of more cabaret. So I was doing cabaret dancing for about 4 years, and then I left to go to school for design. And that same year that I went to school for design, my old friend Ben Delacreme, who actually worked with me at Crave, and I got him to start working at the Can too. And then he had left the Can before me and started doing his own shows, but he was putting on a holiday show. And the person who was supposed to be my role dropped out like the day of the photo shoot. So he randomly was like, "Would you like to be in the show? You do not have to audition if you can just show up to the photo shoot today." And in that show, I had my very first like strictly burlesque act, where I was a gingerbread cookie who was set out for Santa Claus with a glass of milk. And when everybody went to bed, I couldn't help myself, and I like get all crazy and strip down and pour the milk all over myself. And so I was like, "Ooh, this is burlesque. This is what this is. I understand now." And so I got really into it, and I joined a troupe, and then I was in a troupe for a few years, and now I've just been freelance solo boy for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Was that the Ben Delacreme and Jinx Monsoon, the holiday special?
So that holiday special is what spouted out of the other holiday show, which was called Homo for the Holidays. That show kind of ended, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. I'm in a different holiday show now too, with some other people that were also in that production before, and then that production is carried on, and it's called Jingle All the Gay now.
Nice.
But so then Ben and Jinx, he was like, "I want to do a holiday show," and Jinx is also an amazing performer, and they're great friends, and they work really well together. So it's like, this is how you do a touring show when you don't have 15 people in your cast. You have 2 and some backup dancers.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I saw a little bit of like conflict. I do this like mini stalking after someone's like, "Sure, I'll do the show." So once you were like, "Hey, that sounds like fun. Sure, I'll do it." I started like, "All right, let me find Faggedy Randy on this platform, on that platform. How can I, what information can I grab?" And I saw that there was some sort of conflict with like Ben Delacreme was leaving the holiday show, and maybe you stood up for him or something like that. I don't know.
I'm like gonna just put that to like, we're gonna put that to rest. But there was, and that's kind of why it's over. When people produce together and they work together closely for a very long time, I think it was almost 10 years. The last Homo for the Holidays show was the 10-year anniversary of the show, and the three producers just were not really a healthy relationship anymore. So it was kind of time to like split that up and go. And there was some drama and there was some chaos and there was some, you know, people trying to, I don't know. I think everybody had their own side of the story. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's wrong in the way that they felt, but maybe some people were wrong in the way that they acted and did certain things. You know, I can't say that I'm completely innocent. I'm like a dog. I'm like your best friend. I'm gonna always love you. And then, but if you like kick me or poke me enough times, then I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna try to like defend my best friend too. So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, so I kind of got in the middle of it, and then I was like, let's not do this again, and just.
Yeah. That
So I'm like, I'm never gonna do online drama again. But that was my first taste, and I was like, oh, this is fun.
that makes
Not
sense
really.
because I when I tried to like, oh, let me see if I can what I can dig up dirt, it looked like it had all been hashed out at that point. And it like enough time has passed where it's like, you know what? Let's let bygones be bygones. It was sort of like at least the online evidence was sort of gone at that point where I tried to do
Yeah,
my
that just came from deciding to be done.
yeah,
I'm like,
I get it.
this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm not quite sure about like resolution. The resolution just being, I'm not doing this anymore.
Sure, sure. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk more about you. Let's get into some first off, bravo. I was exposed to you at the Colorado Burlesque Festival. That's where I saw you perform first, and my jaw was I dropped. It was that kind of performance, and I don't want to give away too much because it's worth it if you can wait and see this particular uh, performance that you do. And I just gotta, man, just slow clap. It was amazing. The colonial times outfit that you come out with, you're already like, it's very
Yeah.
Gaston almost like from Beauty and the Beast. But I again, I don't want to give too much. I'm trying to button my lip a little bit. I don't want to give too much out, but from start to finish, just the theatrics that go on, all the way from you signing the declaration of this little love note, and the it's called like baiting the audience, where you like get the audience to kind of like take the bait and you smash that. Like there are so many different, I don't know if you're cognizant of it, but there were so many different levels of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like you shattered this expectation, you shattered that expectation, you shattered this other expectation. It was, I mean, start to finish, one of the best burlesque performances that I've ever seen. And I've seen a pretty fair amount. So
Wow, thank you.
yeah.
I can tell you about it that that act actually came from what we just talked about. Like that
Really?
whole split and moving on and like going off on my own. I was like, actually, I was very depressed. And I was kind of discovering that I was like, oh, that I like, oh, I have depression. I know like it, that like that's something I was figuring out. And I was like, oh, okay, like I understand this, and this is why I feel shitty, and this is all these things or whatever. So, but all of that kind of stemmed from all of that kind of that little chaotic period of time, where it was, you know, like relationships were kind of breaking up and ending, and you know, partnerships were ending, and all this stuff was happening, and then on top of it being like, oh, I'm a clinically depressed person or whatever. So I
Yeah.
was trying really hard to make a piece that was like just speaking truth and like getting my own, like working through my own feelings. And originally that song was not the song I was going to use. I was going to use Christine and the
Really?
Queens, Tilted.
Uh-huh.
And it was going to be about, you know, being like a captain on a ship that is kind of going out of control and, you know, like moving like left and right or whatever, but like keeping your balance through the whole thing and shifting. And then I just kind of, after choreographing that, I was like, this is not it. This isn't the thing. Like, this isn't quintessential Faggedy Randy. Like I kind of, my thing is to like, I can't bring the sexy without the stupid. And like it has to be stupid. I have to do something dumb. I have to make people laugh. I can't be so serious. And I also like, it's not in me. So even though there was going to be some comedy in that version too, I kind of decided to whip it around. And I had been talking with some friends about it before, Inga and Indigo Blue and Jamie Von Stratton. And we had listened to Come Sail Away in a car ride once, and we talked about how dumb and stupid that would be. So I kind of pulled that back around. But there's like a lot of the original messages are still in there that were kind of like coping mechanisms and dealing. So like that signing the declaration and turning it around and being like, I love you is like me saying I love you to these people that I'm also saying goodbye to. And you know what I mean? Like there's all this, there is a lot of layers in that piece that I'm like, oh, this has a whole ton of meaning that nobody knows what the F it's about, but
No,
it ends up like working and reading in a different way.
it does. It's got layers. It really does shine through, and it's also campy at the same time, which is just, I mean, chef's kiss. It's that is my favorite kind of performance, like campy with meaning and purpose, if that makes sense. And without
Yeah.
knowing the backstory, I was like, this is art. Like this is a real performance. And I love what you said about like I'm saying goodbye to these people also, like because performing is like this fleeting thing. It's sort of temporary. And yes, you've got like a yes, you've kind of got like a performance that you I guess get really good at over time, and you're doing it over and over and over again. But each night is different. Like each night is the crowd's different. There's a different response. You're in a different city. I'm sure you run into that also.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's times when that act in specifically now that I've done it for a few years has gotten like really dialed in,
Yeah.
and I've really found moments that people really respond to. You know, sometimes it's just like you just kind of do something dumb in the moment, a little bit different, and then for some reason you're like, oh, that was the thing because the crowd went nuts. So you're like, that's a keeper. You know, you like start, you know, it just kind of gets
Yes.
stronger and stronger as you go on. And I had some friends in the audience that night, and one of them was Desiree Demore, and she was like, that is the best I've ever seen that act happen. And I was like, oh, that's so good. So
Yeah. So
it made me feel great that it was like knocked it out of the park on that night. Like, yeah.
yeah, you really did. It was amazing, man. I was definitely awestruck by it. How do you keep okay? There is a like a thongless um cup piece that goes over your genitals. How does that thing stay on? There's no straps. There's no
No, it's professional toupee tape.
toupee tape. Okay, I
Yeah, so
gotcha.
not there's a lot of wig tape and toupee tape out there, and I just want to say, if Topstick works for you, amazing. But a lot of people use Topstick for stuff, and I don't understand because it doesn't do anything for me. I'm a sweaty person. I also have like my skin produces oil very quickly. That stuff doesn't work. But I did find there's a place called hairdirect.com,
Uh-huh.
and they have all these individual strips of toupee tape in different shapes, like so you can use it for whatever. And I just kind of stock up there once a year, and that stuff. I'm pretty sure nobody's wearing a toupee or a wig for 2 weeks straight, but it says on the packaging like lasts up to 2 weeks, and that stuff holds on like all the way on. Yeah, it's really really
Have you
good.
ever, and now that you set all the pins up, can we knock them down? Have you ever lost that piece? Did it take a while until you found out like, okay, I need some industrial tape or something?
No, it's never popped off. I actually started using that Top Stick stuff, not Top Stick, the Hair Direct stuff. It says no glue, please, on the back of the strip. So that's, if you know, you see that, that's one of the good ones. There's also ones that have like little perforated holes in it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just guessing that that's for when you're sweating to let some of the sweat like move through so the tape still sticks to you.
Mhm.
But I started using that stuff actually during that Home Over the Holidays show because I was a gingerbread man and I had candy buttons like glued to me. And still to this day, I have patches of hair that don't grow because I did that act for so many years. And 2 times a night, I would rip candy buttons off my body in the
Oh
same.
no.
So there's just like no hair growing there.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's it the appearance or the illusion is that there is no hair there. I would imagine if someone says you missed a spot shaving, you're like you're gonna have to be more specific. because, because
I,
it seemed like
I'm a person who likes to trim it up. You know, there's a lot of I have no issue with body hair or people having lots of body hair. I think that's great. But for some reason, I have stuck with being a clean shaven body. I'm actually pretty hairy. And like
yeah.
my butt gets actually extremely hairy. And people don't understand or believe that unless haven't done a show in a minute. If I
Uh-huh.
have like a month to break, it's
You
pretty
take
wild.
that break. Yeah.
It's pretty.
Your razors are like, oh my God, thank goodness. This is
Yeah.
finally we can go on vacation.
Here's
That's great.
a great tip is don't use a razor on your entire butt because you're gonna get ingrown hairs and things like that, and it'll be bumpy and weird. I only use clippers on my butt and a razor in the crack. That's
I was really I'm terrified. I had to like write down a note and say, Don't talk about Faggedy Randy's ass because that's gonna take up 50% of the show and we're just gonna
that's my like number one asset. I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
female presenting performers and stuff, they have, you know, their breasts as the final reveal. And I'm like, no one cares about my, like, you know, my chest or
You got
my,
a nice
like,
chest too, though.
or whatever. Yeah, but no
Uh-huh.
one, you know, that's not like a big wow, you know, so it's
Yeah,
just like, it's always
I
going to
get
be like a butt reveal or something ridiculous, crotch related,
it.
crotch and butt.
What's the worst part about performing burlesque? Is there something that you're like, oof, if I could, if I could alleviate this one problem here, I would take this out. So it seems pretty fun all in all.
I've got 2 things, I guess. One is like the prep time.
Mhm.
It actually takes a lot of prep, and you're working at least probably 2 hours before doing any performance, like putting on your makeup and getting your costume ready, repairing anything that you might need repairing, taping everything up and getting it ready to go.
Right.
You know, rubbing alcohol all over your body wherever you're going to tape something to it so that it'll stick better. Like there's just a lot of prep. I wish it could be like, and then you just go perform. You don't have to do all that stuff. Um, yeah. And then
Yeah.
the other thing that kind of is sucky about burlesque is the competitive nature of the world and like the industry, where it's just like I kind of just want to perform and have a good time and be with all these other people who are doing the same art form and are just kind of like crushing it, and they're crushing it because you can tell that they're having fun and they're being inventive and they're being smart and they're like doing all this stuff, and they're like, that's what blows my mind. And so when it gets like into a competitive world, like, oh, don't do that because this person does that, or don't do this, or I really want to win this title. And it's like, you know, titles and things are really cool. It's fun, but I just wish that the competitive spirit was more also like a camaraderie spirit. And just like, I mean, we're all a bunch of weirdos. It's a huge community, but it's also a very tiny community. So it's like, oh God, just take some pleasure in being like, all these weirdos are just like me. We're doing this stupid thing that's like,
Yeah.
it's really dumb. We try to get like really fancy just to take clothes off in an interesting way. That's it. Like, it's just to be like, just to surprise people, because it is the same thing over and over. You're watching people take their clothes off over and over, and that's the one thing that doesn't get boring to me about burlesque, is being like, when people are being inventive and you're like, oh, I've seen hundreds, maybe thousands of burlesque acts, and that just like shocked me, and I was like, fuck yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, nobody really gets tired of people taking their clothes off. I have to say that, that you'll always have a pretty substantial piece of like job security in that.
But when it's the same, you know what I mean? If it's like nothing new and you're like, there is a lot of that.
Yeah,
And we're like, okay, that was pretty.
yeah. That's why I want to encourage people to go see you, and I don't want to talk too much about the actual act because it's so worth it. It is so worth it. And there's just like your ass, there's a lot of
Just,
um
I go on a
emotion and
seat of self-discovery. That's the act. That's what we can say about it.
that's
It's
beautiful.
I
Well put.
set sail to go find myself, and I do.
You totally do.
And I learn all sorts of things about my body.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Do
that
you have
enough?
any? Yes, that's perfect. That's perfect. Do you have any tips for anybody that wants to get into theater or burlesque specifically?
Just like geek out on it, and like find the people that you are in your community that are doing it and that you are inspired by, and then tell them and go for it and just do it. That's the biggest lesson I've had to learn myself, is like, stop being held back by your own weird issues with like, is it going to be good enough? Am I going to, it's like, you know what? It's like everything in this world is real crazy. It can be really crummy. It can be very depressing. There can be all sorts, you know what I mean? It's just like, there's so much negative to pay attention to. And it's like, you only get to do this once, and why not just try doing whatever it is you want to do? So like, just get out there, do it. And then, yeah, meet your heroes, meet people that you think are amazing and that you're like, oh, I would love to be as good as them. Like, let them be your teachers, and they
Yeah.
will.
Do you,
Unless they're a
who were
jerk.
your, I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, and they will, unless they're a jerk.
Yeah, that's right. Um, who are some of your heroes? It doesn't have to be
um,
burlesque related either.
yeah, I just, performance wise, I'm gonna say Ben de la Creme. Like,
Mandela.
just an amazing friend, amazing human, amazing performer. Like, just every time they do something new, I'm freaking blown away by like their brain and how smart it was and how much time and energy and thought and care they put into every single thing they do. So when it, even when it's like they're just winging something, you're like, oh, there is so much effort and practice and years of like cultivating this craft that makes it so good that you can just jump out and wing it sometimes if you have to. Yeah, they're incredible. Ernie Von Schmaltz, are also Elsa Von Schmaltz. Uh, they are definitely my hero. We, I think, are kind of cut from the same cloth, where we love to put a little ridiculousness into the burlesque, and they just did a new act transitioning. I don't actually want to say.
Okay,
Maybe I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to give it away. But
coach, we should
the
encourage people
act
to go
is
check out.
it's great. They just did it for the first time at Seattle Burlesque Festival, and blew my mind. Like, there was so much heart in it. There was so much like, oh, it just kind of just ticked all those boxes where you're like, F you, that is so
Yeah,
good. But then it just really pulled the entire audience along with them on this journey. And you were just like, everybody was just kind of screaming and proud for them at the end, being like, yes, like that's incredible. And I just love what they do. And then other times, Ernie will just be on the ground with some lunch meat and being really gross with some lunch meat.
yes.
And I like absolutely love that, where I'm like, yeah, but put lunch meat in your act. Great, thank you. I mean, Samson and Pinot Noir are my two co-producers of our group Bodysuit, and they're both fantastic people. Pinot Noir is my partner, and they're just incredible people, incredible humans, incredible performers. They just, I can't even, I feel extremely fortunate to like be around both of them, and Sam has been just kind of crushing it this last year and just all over the place. He just headlined the Colorado Burlesque Festival, and he's about to be a headliner at the What the Funk Festival, which is an all POC funk music burlesque festival in Seattle. That's going to be next weekend, and Pinot Noir is going to be competing for Grandmaster Funk in that festival too. So I'm very excited to see both of them. There's so many people. There's so many people. It's not. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like the community is huge. Another person though, I'm just gonna throw out there, Moscato Ecstatique. Like, have you seen Moscato Ecstatique?
I guess I haven't. I'm gonna have to do my homework.
A beautiful, gorgeous, amazing human, like just breaking boundaries, breaking barriers. They're just like, I could cry talking about them. They're so good. So good. I don't know if I can give away any like information about, maybe I can, because they just announced it at the Seattle Burlesque Festival. They did the act that they're going to be competing for. Look at me, I do have a little tear thinking about Moscato. They're competing at Burlesque Hall of Fame for the title of Queen, and they were the first person to be a gender non-conforming person to be in the debut category a couple of years ago. The last time there was a Burlesque Hall of Fame, I think it was 2019. And so now, because they've debuted, they qualify to compete for Queen, and they're going to be doing it. And the act that they're doing is just hands down like freaking incredible. It's just beyond. And I can't say anything else about the act because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it is beyond. I literally watched them do it. The first time I saw them do it, we were in a pizza parlor in a drag show called Tush that Betty Wetter puts on in Seattle. It's in what neighborhood is that? Beacon Hill, in Beacon Hill. But anyway, it was like, it was a drag show, and the place was packed, and they had, hired a couple of us burlesquers to join, because Seattle's kind of been doing a really good job of trying to just like pull the two communities together a little bit more, and kind of celebrate what each other does, what drag queens do, and then what burlesque performers do. And they did this act. The entire pizza parlor was like on its feet. People stood up, standing ovation. I was like, this is nuts. This doesn't happen at a drag show. It was crazy. I cried. I'm gonna cry now. I'm gonna cry when they perform at Beehuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And last but not least, I have to say Waxy Moon. Waxy Moon is one of my favorite humans ever, and such a genius burlesque performer, and has been like a huge inspiration to me about like how to incorporate, all the heart and feeling and all of those elements and the camp into your burlesque act. He's like the absolute best at that, I think.
Yeah. What's great about the show?
See, I'm just gonna go on forever. And like Tigger's a superhero. Like Tigger is, I love that it's like the joke is like Tigger warning before Tigger goes on to perform. It's like, you don't know what they're gonna do, but that's the best. Like, he's ready and willing to just shock the shit out of you and to make you love it. And you're like, I didn't know I was ready for butthole, but
yeah,
I was. Tigger made me ready for butthole, or just for full on penis. Tigger's like, you're gonna get it.
I feel like I'm gonna have to start playing like the Academy Awards music. That way you're not like, hey, I wanted to think,
like, I'm just saying there's so many people who are just like,
Adam cut me off. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the Academy. Please like go backwards in the podcast, rewind 15 seconds and write these names down and check out these performers.
Ruby Mimosa, write down Ruby Mimosa. Oh my God, she started this crazy show called Burlesque Karaoke. It's a karaoke night. You get to choose your song, you choose what you sing, but a burlesque performer comes out and does improv burlesque to your song. And it's an incredible show as well. It's like, there's so much heart in it. Everybody freaking loves it. And like, it's one of the best energy shows I've ever done in my life. It's so much fun.
That sounds like a blast.
I guess we have to cut it off. But if I forget anybody, you know that there's a million people. I'm just trying to like pop off
Yeah.
who's there. But I mean, all these people are definitely like my heroes. I love them to bits. And there's more and more and more. Like, if you want me to write down a list, I will write down the list of all the people who are incredible. Because
Yeah.
it truly is wild. It's wild that there's this community
Yeah.
and that it's like, oh my God, I get to know these people that really just like blow my mind all the time. You're just like, ah. It's crazy.
It's a beautiful thing. Is there okay, so you're pretty good friends with Ben Delacreme, and if those that may not know, Ben Delacreme went extremely far on RuPaul's Drag Race. I can't remember what season because they're all like melding together. So I apologize
I think
to
they
Ben
were on
Delacreme.
season 6, and then they also were on All Stars 3.
And I think it was it All Stars um, where Ben Delacreme was basically just crushing it, like on course to win. And Ben Delacreme was like, "I fucking love you guys. I'm out of here." Like, was essentially like, "You
Yeah.
guys are all great."
I mean, a lot of people have their opinions about that, being like, oh, you should have, whatever. But it's like, it's not
Uh-huh.
you. You're not on that show. You don't know what it's like to be there. You don't know what it's like to have producers like up in your business trying to get you to say certain things or do certain things or whatever. And I'm sure it was also a positive experience, but Ben's also just an extremely thoughtful stand-up human being and was like, I think that they were really actually scared to go back to Drag Race because they had done such a good job on their season. They got a lot of love. They got Miss Congeniality, and so it's like, why go back? Why go back and potentially like just screw it
I
all up? Like, why would you do that? And so it took them a long time to decide that they were gonna do it, and they asked a lot of friends and were like, should I even? But then they did, and I think because they went back and they were just crushing it, they realized how much they'd grown as a performer, how much they'd grown like as a person, how you know what I mean, and just like their drag had gotten better, everything, and they're just like, I think I came here to prove something to myself that I could do this, and they're like, and I did. I just like I'm doing it, and
yeah
then to have to sit there and tell other people you're going to go home, they were like, God, I already did what I wanted to do. I feel so great about it that I'm just like, no, I'm just going to go because I don't want to send somebody who's amazing home. Like, that's kind of crappy.
yeah I love the Sopranos ending. That's I prefer that. Like the what could have something could have happened. This was kind of a long-winded like question to get back to you. Have you ever been pressured by Ben or friends of yours to do burlesque or like no, I'm sorry, not burlesque, to do drag outside of,
No.
is that just not your
Um,
forte?
I did it once for like a birthday party, and man, I don't know if I should try to dig up the picture somewhere and send it to you.
Yeah.
It was like the birthday party was like all drag. It was like girls dress as boys, boys dress as girls, you know. And it was a little while ago too. So it was kind of before people were, or at least I was, and the people, my like group of friends were kind of like super aware of like just like the transgender community, and like I had some trans friends, but it wasn't like at the front of my mind about being like how actually like what a struggle it is. So I'm just kind of like, if you're not like a drag performer, if it's not in your body and your spirit, like um if you're just not feeling that ache to do that, it's just like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like that's kind of, I feel like
I
drag
totally understand.
drag is very, very popular right now. It's very popular, but there's people out there where it's like they are just fucking like born to do drag. They are, and so if it's just like this looks fun, I don't know. I'm just like, get out of the way. Get out of the way for the people who like it's like in
Yeah.
them. They have to do it because it's a crazy thing. Um, trying to balance the difference between, people who are trans and people who are gender nonconforming. And then the drag community has, had to correct itself a bunch of times, in the past because it is men doing female presenting things, but like it's becoming more inclusive and it's becoming more like drag. It's just about makeup and becoming somebody else, becoming a different character, and becoming, it's like the costuming and the performance and so it is for everybody. And I love there being like bio queens out there. And I have been watching the current season of Drag Race and seeing like Kylie Sonique Love being a woman now, but just being on there and completely just crushing it. Like she's just doing amazing and doing fucking funny things that make me laugh every time. Have you been watching it?
I have, yeah.
When they do the elimination and then they have to choose the lipstick, and then they'll like put it in the box and they show the person like put it in the box and they show them walk out the doors. They just show everybody else walk through those double doors to like go back in the workroom, but every time she does it, she's like, she like turns around and gives like a little look like, how dare I? And I'm like, oh my God, it's so stupid. But yeah, I mean, I feel like drag performers and just performers of any sort, it does take a while to like find your bearings and figure out who you are or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, if it's just not in your body and it's not in your heart, like just don't do it.
I totally get that.
So I haven't done it, and Ben has actually been somebody to say, he's like, I'm so glad you never tried. You never tried. I don't think it's just not in me. It's not in me to do it. Like I don't have the the female persona, or that like that's not inside me to be like, I need to express this. It's just literally not there. But if I did, I have a name for her, but she'll never come out. But it would be Faggedy Randy and Lesbian. That would be her.
That's good.
Never
That's
coming.
So good.
She's never gonna arrive.
Do you ever catch flack from anybody about your performance name, Faggedy Randy?
I haven't gotten flack. I've gotten some concern a couple times. There's been one time there was the producers, well, maybe not the producers, but the owners of a brewery that was putting on a festival. And the producers are like, we booked you, we understand. But then the brewery like sees like the draft of like a poster with the name on it, and they were like, like they were just scared that they're like something bad was going to happen to them, because that's on there. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. This name is so dumb. It's really, really dumb. And I came up with it when I started doing the cabaret performances at the Can, because first thing I did was sub for this performer named Ultra. And they were like bonkers, like the most gender bending, fun, crazy, wild, like they did insane things. They would pull a roll of dollar bills like in a link together, like that were all linked up together, out of their butt on stage, like just have it like dollar bills just come out of their butt. And so it was like I had to sub for them. Yeah. And I was like, I guess I have to like bring the same energy. And everybody in the troupe had that thing where they use their real name incorporated into their stage name somehow. So I was like, I don't know. So I was like playing around with a bunch of, there was a worse one, was really terrible. I thought about Randy Lion. So bad. And so I was like, no, that's a terrible name. But so then I did Faggedy Randy just to like, just be that queer energy in the show. And it's really become like a badge of honor for me. It's kind of like, no one's going to call me a fag. Sorry that I just said that on your podcast, but no one's going to call me that because I already called myself that. Like, and if you do, I'm just like, what did you think? Like, it's already there. And then, it's a made up word, Faggedy, raggedy. It's playing off of Raggedy Andy. So it's kind of dumb, but it just is like, I don't know. I feel like Faggedy is like the essence of who I am. It's actually a stupid name. It's very dumb, and but it's funny too, and people get it. Right. But so I don't know. It's been kind of just like a badge for me, and just being like, when people see it, and if people enjoy my performance, I think it kind of just might help twist some of the ways that people think about stuff, and being like, oh, he's definitely not hiding anything. He's definitely out there in the forefront. And I just enjoyed what he did so much. Like, but
Yeah.
I've had a, not very many, but a couple straight people say like, especially straight men be like, oh, I feel uncomfortable saying your name, you know, like they don't want to say it because they don't want, you know, but I'm like, but that's what I named myself. So you shouldn't feel uncomfortable.
I love that straight men have the biggest issue with it.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be seen as a, you know, but I'm like, but you're not,
So you're
but it's my
okay.
name.
Yeah.
It's my name. But
Yeah.
also just call me Randy if you're uncomfortable and say Randy. Like, it's
Sure.
there. That's part of my name too. It's fine.
Yeah. It is like an eye catcher. It's like, what? And then you look and you're like, oh, that's hilarious. It's Raggedy Ann and Andy, the dolls. If you, man, I don't know. I'm definitely dating myself now. I'm creeping up on 40 here. So
Me too.
okay, yeah. So my sisters had the Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, and it took a
They're
second.
horrifying. They're
Yes,
horrifying. You look at them and they're actually horrifying. They don't look, you're like, oh, how fun were those? And you're like, no,
not
no,
yeah.
it's scary.
Which makes it even more funny that like that's your name and that's your persona.
I think that
You
there's,
you
I need to find it. I don't think I'll ever do an act to it, but maybe I would. But somebody sent me a clip from the cartoon
yeah.
Raggedy Ann. Wait, what is the actual? I'm like, I can only say my name. Raggedy Ann and Andy, right?
Uh-huh.
The actual cartoon, and Raggedy Andy is singing some song about how girls suck. No, he doesn't like girls, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. That's really great. Yeah.
More layers. That's great. Is there is there a time that I want to say the hardest time that you've ever laughed, but that's a difficult question because I feel like people dig really deep. But what's the a time that you can remember where you laughed really hard?
I mean, I do. I like laugh. I feel very fortunate. Um, I laugh a lot, and I think that that is like part of what helps me, you know, cope with having, you know, being a depressed person, because sometimes you just have those like lows. Um, but I'm fortunate to have all these people in my life that really are just wonderful and give me a reason to, you know, laugh and give me reasons to, and like just they pulled joy out of me and into the world. So I laugh a lot. I'm trying to think of
That's
something
okay.
that's made me laugh like super, super hard.
I feel like it's kind of a
Dina
difficult question.
Martina. Dina Martina. Do
Uh-huh.
you know about Dina Martina? That
Oh, I've got a sheet of homework right here that I've been like while you're talking. I'm like,
okay.
yeah,
Well,
Ernie, got it.
okay, so Dina Martina is an amazing drag queen. They've been doing drag forever, but like John Waters is a huge fan of Dina Martina. Like that's to just kind of like wrap it up, and has said, you know, it's like they've discovered their own weird, wacky style. Like it's not just drag, it is completely beyond. You're like, you have no idea what this is. She does a holiday show every year, and it's so genius. The character is so developed, like so honed in, and there's so many layers to it. Like over 20 years she's been doing this, and it's never fails to make me, my stomach hurt. I'm like cry laughing the whole time and trying to stop so that I don't miss the next joke, because they just keep coming one after the other. But they're not these like punchlines, you know. It's like within her body language, within you know, there's like a weird subtle joke, there's in the way that she pronounces words differently. It's like everything's so layered that it just kind of keeps coming. One of the best gags that I've ever seen is the song "I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm."
Uh-huh.
The last time I saw her holiday show, she has moved from a small bar, Rebar in Seattle, that RIP, it no longer exists thanks to the pandemic. That's terrible. But she has moved on to be in larger theater spaces. And so she was doing her show at the ACT Theater, but this year it's going to be at the Moore Theater in Seattle. And this is how amazing she is. She is only doing one night at the Moore this year instead of her like month-long run of shows, because ACT Theater couldn't do it this year because of COVID. But she got one night, and she just maybe a couple weeks ago said, "Hey everybody, I know it's really early, but I'm going to do one night at the Moore for the holiday show, and tickets are on sale now." Like days later, the entire, like hundreds and hundreds, like I think it might be like thousands of seats. I don't know how many people the Moore holds, but it's a huge, huge, huge theater. Like sold out in July, like Christmas in July. She was sold out because that many people have made her their holiday tradition. Like it's not
Cool.
Christmas without Dina Martina. Sorry, I'm going on a long tangent, but anyway, that song, I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm, at the end of the show, she's like, oh, I'm going to sing one more song. And she does this bit. I don't want to ruin it, but I'm going to ruin it. There was a giant Christmas present that was on stage the entire time as like just a prop. She has all sorts of things. Kind of, it seems like you're in her home, the way it's set up. So there's this giant box, and it has this giant teddy bear on top of it or whatever. And she starts singing the song, and then in the musical break, she runs out and whacks the teddy bear off of the box, drags this huge thing into the center of the stage, throws the lid off, pulls it out, and it's a giant fur coat. And so then she just spends the rest of the musical break stumbling and mumbling and like trying to figure out where the top of the coat is. So finally at the last second, like figure it out, put the coat on. And then the very next lyrics, I think, are like, throw out the whatever is like the very next lyric. And so she immediately goes throw out and throws the coat off that she just spent like over an entire minute trying to put on. And it just made everybody laugh so hard and cry. It was really amazing. Like there was Taylor Mack was in town and was watching that show, and actually Tigger is in Taylor Mack's Christmas show, and Tigger was there as well. So we were watching the show together, and just to watch two other amazing performers like get extremely tickled by somebody else's performance was like they're that good when these seasoned performers are like losing their shit over somebody. She's great.
Yeah, that's like the highest form of a compliment. If you like somebody in your same art is respecting your art or enjoying your art, for lack of a better term. That's amazing.
If anybody wants to see like just how stupidly amazing Dina Martina is for like a second, just look up Dina Martina Wigstock.
Uh-huh.
Her act at Wigstock. Well, there's two different Wigstock. One's very, very old. They're both amazing. But the latest one, she's wearing like a red sweater with one like epaulette thing and a little sailor hat. That's the one that is just like, this is how stupidly genius she is. That it just, go Google that and watch that, because it's the dumbest, most incredible thing. And it makes you angry that you didn't think of it yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Randy, we're at the point of the podcast where if there's something that we haven't covered that you're like, oh, I really wish we would have talked about this, I'm leaving the platform open for you. If not, you can pass it back to me and we'll just keep moving.
Okay. Let's talk about just burlesque, the burlesque community at large. I'm just super want to talk about kind of just like the mission of Bodysuit and other friends and performers, and just really working hard. I just want to encourage everybody that is a producer or in a show to make sure that it is a fully inclusive show. There are so many POC performers and Black performers that are just fucking incredible performers. There's a never-ending list, and all you have to do is get on Facebook, or there is a Black burlesque registry for where you can go find performers there. It's not really acceptable anymore to, and it shouldn't have ever been acceptable, but it's like we're at this point where it's like, no, make sure your show at the very least, like I would like to see people have a third of their cast be not white. Like there's that many out there, and it just kind of should be integrated. And that's a terrible word. That sounds like super 60s, like 1960s. Integration now. But no, it's just kind of ridiculous. And just making that space, if you're a producer, and making sure that space is there is so important. And your shows are going to be that much better. Like, and if you have not been to an all black or an all POC show either, like the spaces for those are starting to kind of finally like become available. Like the What the Funk Fest that's happening in Seattle next week. It is the first time in that theater's history that there's ever been an all POC performance of any sort. So it's kind of rad that that is breaking barriers, and Miss Pucks of Plenty and Rebecca Davis are the producers of that, and I just want to like give them props to making that happen. Geez Louise, I'm sure you've heard of her. She is incredible, and she's been putting together like Jeezy's Juke Joint for,
Yeah.
I think this might be like the 10th year of its existence, but maybe there's only been like, because of COVID, maybe it hasn't happened. They had to skip a year or something, but that show, hands down, I went to it. It was one of the best, most lively, fun, crazy. The energy is nuts. Like, she's cultivated a culture where the people that come to perform in her show feel like this is Jeezy's Juke Joint, and I need to bring it. I need to bring the energy hard, and they do, and it's outstanding and amazing. So it's like if you're just missing these things, like, you get out there and find them, because they need to be supported and they need to be seen. It's just like, it's kind of just ridiculous. Like, get your shit together and start booking POC performers, because they're all over the place. They're in every city. Make sure they're booked.
I love
The
it.
end.
I love it. In tradition of the show, we always end with a poop story, but I didn't want to do that because I don't want to tarnish the reputation of your ass. You have even held a champagne glass in between your cheeks and poured a glass of champagne, which baffles me. I can't even polish my like stemware without breaking it. So have you ever had that instance, by the way? Have you ever broken a glass?
I've never broken a glass, but I got
That's good.
a little bit worried. One time I went and I performed at the Laurie Beachman in New York, and I had no idea that the ceilings were that low. And it's all like, all the lighting equipment is like right, like you can reach up and touch some of it. And I do, I'm like swinging that glass around, and I kind of like was like,
You
how
got
do I get between these things so I don't, just do these weird tiny movements with my arms and not do it. And that kind of made me freak out, because I had been using a champagne glass forever. And I
yeah.
just thought I had it under control and I would never have a mistake. And I was like, you're going to have a mistake one day. You better figure it out. And I found a plastic champagne glass that looks like glass. It doesn't look like the screw on bottom type or anything. It looks like
Yeah.
it is one solid piece, and it looks like one solid piece. And when there's liquid in it, it looks even more like glass. So
Right. Yeah.
I
Good.
moved on to plastic. Yeah.
Kudos.
But I'm not afraid to tell a poop story if you
Okay,
want it.
great. I would
But
love it. Yeah. If you
yeah.
feel comfortable with it, I would love that.
I don't think it'll tarnish my ass. I just think it'll make people laugh really hard. I was in Hawaii, and I had eaten something that just was not sitting right with me. And I didn't know until we had gone on this long, extraneous walk across all of this lava rock on the edge of the island to just get to the best spot to see the sunset. And so we finally get out there, and like all the way, and then literally everybody could hear it. My stomach was like just started making crazy noises, and it hurt really bad. And I was like kind of keeled over, and I was like, what the F is that? And then like just going nuts. And I started to feel the pressure, and I was like, I have no time. I have no time. And so I was like, I just turned around and was like, I'm leaving, goodbye. And I just didn't even leave anybody any time to ask a question. I just was like booking it the other way. But then I'm going across all this lava rock again, like trying to scale it, and going by these blowholes where the water like kind of crashes in and like shoots up out of the. So that's happening, and it's like very dramatic, and I'm like trying to get all the way back. So then finally I like get back to this trail that leads you winding back to, there's like a Grand Hyatt. It's on Kauai. There's like the Grand Hyatt, and if anybody's been there, they know what I'm talking about. So this path that goes along the water cuts up right next to the Grand Hyatt and then goes into these like living like a neighborhood. And we had an Airbnb back there. And so I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it. And I was like screaming. I was like literally yelling out loud at myself, being like, no, no, and like running. And was wearing these little shorty shorts and also had some bikini briefs on underneath the shorty shorts, luckily.
Yeah.
And so I had like grabbed them in the front and was like tugging them to the front as hard as I could while I was like scooting and like running. And just like all these people at this fancy hotel are like, what is wrong with this person? This crazy person who's like, yeah. And I just finally hit that point where I literally couldn't do anything. And it was there. I just love to say that it looked like I was wearing a diaper, fully filled up.
Did you have an
And
audience? Were
it
the
was
people were
it was like there's the hotel and then there's like the landscaping and groundskeeping and it looks all beautiful and this path is going through it. So there's people like walking around and doing stuff and I'm just cutting through all of them screaming and pooping myself at the same time. But luckily there was our Airbnb had an outdoor shower.
beautiful?
So I didn't have to But it was horrible. That was like horrible. I was like, how are you in like a, this paradise tropical place and this is what you're doing right now.
I thought you were gonna say when you were talking about like the blowholes with the water like splashing up. I thought you looked at that and had this like wonderful like gigantic bidet like pop in your head. I'm like,
that's like what I should have done. That's where were you? Where were you?
I know where.
No,
That's
I
right.
probably would have gotten like knocked into the lava rock by that and got all scratched up.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Randy, where can people find you? Do you have a website? I will absolutely tag these things in the show notes so people can easily click.
I don't know why I work in, visual design and stuff. And I don't actually I'm so bad about my website. I have like a design website. And then that's even like, I only have that because of when I want to find a job. I'm like, oh, make sure your latest stuff is on here. And then once I get a job, I'm like, forget it. I don't care about that anymore. I don't want to work on it. So I don't even know what state it's in right now because I got a job right before I moved to Chicago. And that's what allowed me to move to Chicago. And so I'm like, oh, fuck that website again. Let's like throw it out the door. I should have a burlesque website. I do not. It's just Faggedy Randy, Faggedy Randy at on Instagram. And same thing on Facebook. I have my Faggedy Randy one, which is annoying that Facebook forced us back in the day to have your real name. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got kicked off Facebook for having a fake name. They deleted my account. And so then I had to have Randy Phillips, which is my normal name. And then AKA Faggedy Randy, like underneath it so people know. So there's that one. But then, people are like, oh, you should just have an account where, it's just like a performer account and people, they don't friend you, they just like it. And I'm like, well, I'll do that, but it's hard to give a crap about Facebook at all. Like it just is obnoxious and all of it's obnoxious. The social media is obnoxious. It's hard to keep up, but you have to keep up. So it's like, I'm just putting things out there because that's what you need to do in order to stay relevant these days. But yeah, I would say the best place to follow me is Instagram because that's where I post everything from, and then I just let it shoot to Facebook from there, and then I just let it go. I don't care.
I do the same thing. I neglect my website. I got it up and running, and then I just neglect it. And then 2 years later, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I had a misspelled word on it for 3 years or something. But yeah, Instagram is usually you can get anywhere you want to go if you reach out to somebody on Instagram.
Also, Bodysuit, BAWDY suit. That's the burlesque production trio of me, Samson Knight, and Kino Noir. We've been doing digital shows all through the pandemic. And we are excited to move forward into the new year and start doing live shows. and it's kind of cool. We're going to try to mix it up and go do things in different cities and try to figure out how us as a production group can produce shows that don't, it's not like just one city in one place. We kind of want to keep doing what we've been doing in being able to have performers from all over the place. So I think the only way to do that is like bring shows to those other places so that we can have them, because it's expensive to fly people everywhere. You can't just do that without money and funding. So we're trying to figure out our own way of like, how do we produce shows that include other people from different places? But we're going to figure it out.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. Does Bodysuit have a website?
No.
No. Okay.
They also have an Instagram and a Facebook. That's what we
Okay.
got. One day,
Okay.
that's the problem, is like I'm the one who's the tech person, and the designer, and I'm being like, I don't have the time. Like, who has the time?
I know.
Like,
it's a
I
whole nother
guess I
stuff.
should make the time, but it's like between a day job and then trying to run around and travel and go do shows, and just, it's like, when do you rest?
I totally get it. It's tough. I get my hand slapped all the time for like, why don't you have this? Why don't you have this kind of account? Why don't you have this kind of a, it's
Like,
tough, man. I gotta run a show and also have a regular 9 to 5. It's not easy. So you'll catch no you push back from me. I'll put the Instagram links in the show notes so people can click on them easily and keep up to date with you. Randy, thank you so much for doing this. You were an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It was totally fun meeting you at the Burlesque Festival and Colorado Burlesque Festival. Shout out to all the producers. They did an amazing job. I can't
Really
believe
good.
that they pulled that off, like had it in COVID times and made it outdoors. And it actually was an extremely fun and crazy festival. It was really good. And
Yeah,
3 weekends long, like 3 weekends worth of festival. It was pretty bonkers.
yeah, yeah. Amazing stuff. That's it for us. Play us out, Shitty Ukulele.